Hello, welcome to another episode of Navigating Cancer Together. It is the show that has something for everyone facing cancer. Why? Because everyone is different with different needs, beliefs, and perspectives. Thank you for joining us for this special episode for National Cancer Survivor Month. I encourage you to open your minds and your hearts. If you are new to Navigating Cancer Together, I am Talaya Dendy, your host. Navigating Cancer Together is everywhere. Make sure to subscribe and follow the show to stay updated on our latest episodes. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your preferred podcast app or platform. June is National Cancer Survivor Month. And today I want to take a few minutes to talk about something that touches so many of our lives, whether you are a survivor yourself or you love someone who is. Let's start with a question. What does it actually mean to be a cancer survivor? You might think it means someone who finished treatment, but here's the thing. Doctors and researchers actually define it a little differently. A cancer survivor is anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer, no matter where they are in their journey. That includes someone who is still going through treatment, someone in remission, and someone who finished treatment many, many years ago. So, in other words, survivorship starts at diagnosis and it never really ends. It is a lifelong experience. And I must also mention that there are a lot of survivors out there. Think about this. As of January 2025, about 1 out of every 18 American is a cancer survivor. That is 18.6 million people. So, to put that into perspective, that's roughly the entire population of the state of New York. Survivors are our neighbors, coworkers, parents, friends, you name it. And the number of survivors is growing. By 2035, researchers expect that 22 million people in the United States will be living with a history of cancer. Again, 22 million people by 2035 will be living with a history of cancer. That number is very important because it is signaling a need for specialized support for people that have gone through cancer treatment. That is a huge number, but let's talk about why that number is going up. It's going up because they are getting better at detecting cancer earlier and treating it more effectively. Cancer mortality continues to decline in the United States, with roughly 4.8 million deaths avoided since 1991. That is thanks to improvements in treatment, reductions in smoking, and earlier detection. More people are surviving, more people are thriving, and that is definitely worth celebrating. But there's also something I want you to understand. Surviving cancer is not the end of the story. For millions of people like me, it's really more like the beginning of a new chapter. And that chapter, as many of you know, can come with some real challenges that don't always get talked about. Believe it or not, challenges that still come up 15 years later. I say like me because I want to be transparent with you. I am a 15-year cancer thriver. I don't just research this topic. I don't just talk about this topic. I live it each and every day. So let's talk about some of the challenges. The first one I want to touch on is the physical side. After treatment ends, the body often keeps feeling the effects of treatment. Many survivors face long-term challenges that affect their physical, emotional, cognitive, and mental health. Some people experience fatigue that sticks around for months or even years. Others deal with pain, changes in memory or concentration, which is often called chemo brain, or a higher risk of developing other health conditions down the road. Compared to the general population, cancer survivors face an estimated 16% increased risk of developing a secondary primary cancer. That is not to scare anyone. It is meant to explain why ongoing medical care after treatment is so important and why survivors may experience anxiety and worry more. I mean, who wouldn't be worried? Another challenge that many survivors face is the emotional side. Many survivors experience a gumbo of emotions, the fear, the uncertainty, and the really hard days. And then the treatment ends, and everyone around you might expect you to feel like yourself again, but it doesn't often work that way. Rarely does it work that way. Many survivors cope with the fear of cancer coming back, which can be a constant presence in the back of their mind. Abandonment, or what I like to call the post treatment cliff, is something else that weighs heavily on the minds of survivors. That's when the calls slow down, the visitors stop coming, and the people who rallied around you during treatment seem to disappear. It can feel like everyone has moved on, even when you haven't. The overall quality of life tends to be lower among cancer survivors compared to people who have never had a cancer diagnosis. Now, that doesn't mean survivors aren't resilient because we are. It just means that the emotional weight of this experience is real and it deserves real support. Another challenge that survivors face is the financial side. The effects of cancer often come with increased medical costs, difficulty getting health or life insurance, job instability, and lasting financial strain. Survivors can face higher rates of bankruptcy and debt, as well as lower credit scores for years after their diagnosis. Treatments are expensive. Time away from work adds up, and the costs don't always stop when the treatment does. This is a burden that many survivors quietly carry, but don't take my word for it. Talk with other survivors and refer to the sources attached to this episode. I know I just shared some depressing news, but there's some good news about support. And here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Advocates like myself, researchers and doctors are working hard to close the gaps in survivorship care. Communities like the valued listeners out there who are listening to this podcast right now are part of that too. If you are a survivor, your experience matters. Your challenges are real, and you deserve care that goes beyond physical treatment. If you love a survivor, keep showing up. A phone call, a meal, just being present. It all matters more than you know. If cancer has not touched your life directly, I hope today gave you a little more understanding and empathy for the 18.6 million people like myself in this country who are carrying that story. We are going to keep having these conversations on navigating cancer together throughout the month and all year. This topic is very important, so stay with us. Some of you may have heard my story before, but today we get to hear from 7 survivors at different stages of their journey. You will hear from Vanessa, Shoni, Savio, Ebonie, Jerry, Christopher, and Heather. They will share their challenges, their blessings, what survivorship means to them, and so much more. Let's get into it.
Hello, hola. My name is Vanessa Berrueta. I'm a breast cancer survivor. Invasive ductal carcinoma, PR, ER positive, HER negative was my diagnostic, and this happened in May 14, 2024. One challenge I face every day after my diagnostic, and especially after my active treatment ends, is when people think that, oh, now you're okay. Survivorship is nothing that ends when active treatment ends. It's something that continued and you carry on after a cancer diagnostic, basically for the rest of your life. If you are in active treatment or not, it's something that you carry on every day. It's been a challenge to accept that, validate that on me, and make others validate that too. An unexpected blessing since my diagnostic is being, as I call it, my pink community. I be able to connect with so many beautiful humans and people from all ages, people from all backgrounds, people that I know that I will never be able to connect if it wasn't for my diagnostic. So that is a blessing in my life. It is my pink community, as I call it. Survivorship means to me resilience. Survivorship for me is just resilience, how we overcome difficult times and kind of grow like the caterpillar and the butterfly. I see it. We go through difficult times, we go through pain, and then the resilience in us make us being the butterfly every day and accept that transformation. One word that describes my experience surviving cancer, like adapting. Resilience is one that again I feel drive through, but a lot adapt is one that it come to my mind because is so many changes that is coming in our way, so many situations that we cannot control. So it's accept what we cannot control and move forward, adapting of the change, and we can just now live in our new reality. One thing is like it's okay to know you're okay. For me, it was hard to understand the sadness, the anger, and all the emotions are welcome. I'm a person that I'm very positive and happy, and everything needs to be good all the time. And part of be strong is also be honest with yourself. This is the moment that you need to be honest with yourself. You need to take care of yourself. It's important that you give that space because sometimes in a diagnostic like this, we also try to make a space to comfort others. It's so difficult what you're going through. So be there for yourself first, and then from that echoes, from that love to yourself, then accept the relationship with others and what this carry on for others, what you diagnostic carry on for others. But first accept that and be there for yourself. Another thing that is very important is chop around. Shop around of medical advice, shop around about teams, medical teams. You don't need to marry with the first team that give you the diagnostic. If you feel comfortable, amazing. But if not, go and look around. I know that sometimes it's a hurry of I need to take decisions, I need to do it now. But in that hurry, take a minute to chop around with teams, with doctors, with opinions. Because for me, information, as most information you have, less fear and more educated decisions you can take. And that is something that you can control during your diagnostic because, again, it's so many elements and factors that you cannot control. So looking for opinions and look for information, for good fountains of information. Sometimes Google can be scary, I tell you. But talking to medical teams with people that go through this journey before, that kind of information, and that way you can take better decisions. The good decisions is the one that you take with the information you have in your hands in that moment. Look around. Don't take hurry and don't let fear take the decisions for you. As I always say, make your faith be greater than your fears in that moment. So many things that I want to share that I may have not the opportunity to share, but when you are in the middle of the hurricane, everything is so blurry. Understand that in the end, everything will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's because it's not the end. So just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Hello, my name is Shoni Brown. I am a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with stage 2 ER/PR positive breast cancer in 2015, and I am now entering into 10 years of survivorship. One challenge that I faced in survivorship, and I don't want to say faced, I want to say I'm facing because I don't think that this ever stops, is just finding myself again. It's finding out who I am with all of the things that cancer has brought to me. Not necessarily all the negative, it's some positive. It's learning how to reinvent and be the person that I thought I was before cancer and maybe bring some of her into the future because at one point I lost all of that and I had to learn how to keep finding it again. And then when, life hits me in a different way, I bring back what I dealt with years ago. And then I can now say, okay, this is how I can reinvent this bit of myself. It's even from something like the way that I move my body. I was an avid runner. I was all the things, and cancer stopped that dead in its tracks. And then I found exercise again. And just even with my body and getting older and all the things that they don't tell you about, I learned how to start moving again and feeling like myself again. One unexpected blessing that I have encountered, I want to say it's the people. This is probably the worst club to ever be part of, but I have met some of the most amazing people, and it gives you that sense of we may not have all the same type of cancer, and I've met every type of cancer person who's dealt with cancer that you can think of. And it goes from breast to throat to thyroid to melanomas, you name it. And everyone gets it. I feel like I step in a room and I don't have to say anything. I don't have to explain myself as much as I would with those who have never been through it. And I never want anyone else who hasn't to ever feel or ever understand that completely. But it's good to have those who have been through it where I don't have to explain myself. And I feel like, okay, this is the space I have. Because I've even met people at work, and I met a coworker in the elevator for the very first time. We both happened to step in the elevator, the door closed. She melted, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Scans." And I understood exactly what it was. And she's like, "How did you know?" And I said, "I didn't want to know, but I knew from what you said." And she said, "Thank you for that safe space for that 1 minute that we met in the elevator." And the ability to give someone else that, and she was newly out of treatment too, so she's maybe about a year out. So for her, it was like, I'm in this place where nobody understands me, and I needed a moment because now I'm going through, oh no, I have scans that I have to figure out what may be going on because I don't know my body at this point. And the fact that I said, it'll be okay, and if you want to talk later, we can. There was another set of tears that came with that. It was more joyful tears of, now I don't feel alone. I may be still scared, but somebody else, even if I give you a heads up or I look at you in the hallway, you know, maybe this is the day I'm not feeling my best. And it's like, all right, I got somebody else who gets it. So, survivorship, what does that mean to me? Survivorship is never ending. It is, for me, I was told that it's as soon as you've already been diagnosed, you're already a survivor because you have gone through the things that tell you what is going to possibly go on with your life. But I don't feel like that's where it started. I feel like once I started to take my life back was a little bit more of my survivorship. But then there were some moments where I felt like I didn't have it in control. I wasn't in control of my life either. And that's still survivorship. It's the ups and downs, the bumps, the pebbles. It doesn't have to be huge. And it could be the huge things that are going on in your life. It's all the things that cancer may has changed in your life. Some of the things that cancer has given you, like the people who get it and the lovely people that you meet. Also, I feel like that survivorship has given me an understanding of people that me being an educator for years, I picked up on it, but I feel like I understand people more than I ever have. And I realize that on any given day, even the feelings that you have, you may walk in a building because I'm an educator. So I walk in the building and I may see somebody with a frown on their face, and I realize that has nothing to do with me. And even if you're upset, I can still brighten up your day because I know that that has nothing to do with me because you're carrying weight from all parts of your life that most people aren't even aware of or even try to make themselves aware of because we live in bubbles all the time. But I think that because I've had to open and expose myself to so much going on, I had to be aware of, why am I feeling like this? Why do I feel like crap today and then I'm okay tomorrow? Or in 5 minutes, I'm fine. And all of this has to do with what has happened to my body, what I'm trying to push myself through or go through, because you're never going around it. It's like all these emotions and all these things that happen to you. There's no way to like, let me fast forward it and go past it. No, you go through it, you drudge through it, maybe you skip through it. You know, it's like a puddle of mud. Sometimes it's sticky and sometimes it's just you can skip right through it and not even get a speck on you. But I think that's really what it is. I think I gave like an answer that said a whole bunch and not a lot at the same time. But I think that's what survivorship is. There's no one answer. There's no one particular way to describe it. And everyone deals with it in a different way. Some people try to not deal with it at all. And they're like, what do you mean survivorship? They close a chapter and try to move on with their life. And that's not how it works because I tried it, you know? And it all also comes with age. I feel like I was a lot younger then. And 10 years later, that's a lot. And I think also survivorship, what people don't understand too, is when you're surviving after losing other people from cancer. That's another type of surviving. I lost my mom. I've lost more friends than I want to count. So there are always days and months and weeks that remind me of what is not here anymore. But I think part of me surviving is being able to acknowledge that maybe they're not here, but a little piece of them is still with me. And what I share with other people may help them on their journey. One word. I don't necessarily have just one word. I think that there are two sides to it. There's a lot of grief, and within that grief, there's trauma. But also, I want to say another word would be knowledge, because I learned a lot about myself, about other people. And I also learned about, unfortunately, what grief means and what trauma means and how to deal with those things. And it makes it easier for me just living and going through life, understanding what that means, not just to me, but to other people, because we all show grief, trauma in many different ways. Some people hide it, some people hold it, some people let it out, and some people celebrate it. They make it into something else so that it doesn't feel so hard. And that's also part of educating yourself on how to, for yourself, live and go through those bits of your life. For someone who has just been diagnosed, I would tell them, listen to your heart, educate yourself, but don't let that drive you completely. One, because we're not doctors. There's still parts of that we don't need to know everything about. And I think that sometimes we want to know so much and be so knowledgeable that we forget to live in the process. I think for someone who is entering survivorship, maybe going through treatment, keep living. And that's hard to say, to keep living, because depending on what you're going through, whether it's radiation, whether it's chemo, whether it is surgery, when you lose the pieces of your body or you go through all this trauma, it's hard to say, let me just pick up and be that person that I was before. It's hard to find, but don't stop looking. Don't let other people steal your joy either. Do the things that make you happy. Even if it's something as simple as I just did treatment and I need to go get a scoop of ice cream or a walk in the park, or even if it's doom scrolling on your phone on Instagram because you like the silly memes that you see. If that's what brings you joy, do it. If you feel like being a kid and coloring in a coloring book, writing down your feelings, that's one of the things I think is one of the important things is writing. Because when you go back to it later on, it helps you to understand if you go through those feelings again. Because when you say, wait a minute, I felt this before, and even writing it, I feel like people don't understand that when you write things out sometimes versus like typing it down, and I mean really pen to paper writing it, there's a difference in how it helps you heal. I think that we just need to still remind ourselves who we were and who we are still, because even though you feel like pieces of you are lost, because there's no getting back all that time that you're spending in doctor's offices and people telling you what to do, when to do it, hearing all of the people who think they know all the things and you're fine, don't do it. You still need to, one, if you have a support system also. That's amazing to have, is to have someone who can be there for you. They don't have to be your ride or die person, but just even an ear that doesn't judge, that you can just talk to, and it's not somebody who's telling you, well, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. It's like, what would you like to do? Or even someone who just understands that you need to lay down. You need to sit down. What's your favorite movie? It could even be that you might have want to go to dinner and you just didn't make it there. And they understand that sometimes our brain is telling us we want to do all the things we used to do. And our body said, you better sit your behind down. And that's the only thing you can do. And if you have that friend that's willing to say, we were supposed to go shopping, better yet, let's sit on the couch and shop on our phones. I think that we miss that part, and it's hard for other people to understand that. So just even also sometimes at the cancer centers, they do have people who get it, finding maybe someone else who's dealing with something similar. It's all the things that I'm glad they do now. 10 years ago wasn't so much. We had to find it for ourselves. That's what honestly I feel like made it harder. But I feel like just using the resources that are there. And you don't have to be the person that goes to every support group. Some of them are not for everyone. But finding the right fit for yourself, or whatever it is, to keep yourself in the space where you feel somewhat like yourself and don't lose yourself completely. I think that's one of the most important things, is to not lose yourself. But it's hard not to, but not losing yourself, because then you don't have so much to build off because you felt like you've broken everything down. I mean, you might lose a piece here or there. Like, obviously, we lose our identity because of hair. If we do lose hair, gaining weight, especially with women, we go up and down on all these different things. So it makes you already feel like you've lost yourself. So even something as simple as makeup, like just the little things, it's just like keeping those little things that make you smile. When it comes to cancer, it doesn't matter whether someone else feels like your journey was or is easier or harder than theirs. It's yours. It's no one else's but yours. And the only person that can make it through that is you. So what you make of it is what you're going to take away from it. So if you are miserable all the time, you may hold on to that trauma. I'm not going to lie. But I also feel like if you don't allow yourself the little joys and you don't give yourself that space to still be yourself, it's harder. But sometimes that's how we have to learn. So it's also, we have to know that maybe that's just a part of the learning process that needed to happen. And never listen to people who tell you, well, so and so did this and so did that. Everyone's body is 100% different. I don't even care if you came out the womb with someone and you have a twin, their body is still different. Your brain is still different. The way you process things is different. And you're not going to go through it exactly the same way. Someone may lose their hair in 10 days. Someone may barely even drop a hair out their head. You may go through years later of pain that came from surgery or just from treatment, and your body is getting used to it. Where someone is like running a marathon. You cannot compare yourself to anyone. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I did. I saw a lot of women similar in age to me going through breast cancer within the same time frame. And I'm like, well, why are they able to do that? Why can they do that? And I also beat myself up about resources. Sometimes where you live determines what resources you have. Your financial status determines the resources you have. If you don't have, sometimes you have to be able to be that person that reaches out to find the things, which does take energy. Or if you have people who help you do that. But yeah, we just have to realize that all things are not created equal, that we're not going to all get the same treatment. And the last thing I think I want to say which I don't see as many people talking about as much anymore about your doctors not listening. Not that they're not listening. I feel like because of social media, we have less doctors who have the ability to not really be on the right page because they'll get shouted out and called out. Where I feel like years ago, it was like, oh, you're not listening to me because I'm a Black woman, or you're not listening to me because I'm a woman, or what do you know about this, or you're not even listening, period. I feel like we have to be more open to saying, you may be not my right fit. If you are not on the same page of what energy I even want to bring in every time I come into my treatment or my doctor's appointments, that is not for me. Because I've had downers where I was like, I walked in and I had to be upbeat because I got myself ready and I did the things. And then the doctor was just, this is this, that is that. Okay, go do that. I will see you later. And I'm like, you just killed my joy. I needed you to dance party with me. Even if that was like not your thing. I had my plastic surgeon. He knew that I was coming every time I would come in there, that there was something silly I was going to do. He was waiting for it. So that was probably one of the things that clicked with me. I'm like, I can still be myself. And he allowed me to be that person. Like even his whole office, they were waiting. They're like, Shoni's coming. Shoni's coming. What is she going to be doing today? What is she wearing today? Like all the things.
Hi, my name is Savio P. Clementi. I initially was diagnosed in 2014 with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was cancer-free for a decade, and then in June of 2024, I had a relapse of the same lymphoma. One of the challenges, especially for a relapse within a 10-year time frame, was really about accepting the fact that I don't really have control over whatever happens. A large part of my lifestyle was very health focused and wellness focused. And I didn't really think to myself that my body betrayed me, because I know in interviewing others, that's something that they actually said. It was more about, could I actually handle this again? Because treatment for a refractory or a relapse is a lot more involved with lymphoma than the initial treatment a decade ago. And so I just learned to give myself permission to recover. I gave myself permission to relax, because not everything needs to be optimized. Not everything needs to be fixed. Sometimes the best healing is the healing that occurs between the restful moments. And so it was allowing myself the ability to see healing as just not linear, but healing as up, high, low, left, right, and just being truly, truly open to that process. Unexpected blessing that I gleaned from my experience in both cancers is this ability to accept the circumstance and not be so rigid in trying to figure out or find my way through it, but just allowing myself the process of discovery. In my first initial bout with it, I just wanted to fix and I wanted to do. And the second one, I said to myself, okay, I need to lean on the care team in their expertise, even my support system, and the ability to also live in the anchors of silence and stillness. It sounds simple, but actually they gave me so much power because they were available to me anywhere, anytime. And they actually allowed me to create a distance from the label of a cancer patient, or now a double cancer patient, having gone through it again. And so that gave me a little bit of breathing space. Survivorship means to me the difference between burden and responsibility. I think for a large portion of my 10 years, I felt like I owed my insights, my fight, my might, my will, my desire to other people. That felt, even though I couldn't verbalize it, it felt like a burden. And now I don't feel like a burden. It feels like a responsibility, an earned responsibility that I've lost, Talaya, about 8 people since my relapse in June of 2024. Some of those individuals was their first battle with cancer, or their first journey with cancer. And so I don't take that lightly. I take that very, very seriously. And as much as I take it seriously, I also know that there's these intangibles like joy and laughter that I'm seeking. And so I allow that to infuse my responsibility rather than seeing it as just a burden. One word I would use in my survival of cancer and why would probably be acceptance, but not acceptance in the sense of the worst possible scenario or the worst possible situation, but acceptance in what is possible, accepting and receiving that, allowing myself to feel into that, allowing myself to know the possibility of that. And not everything has to have a meaning to it, so to speak. It could just be that I'm discovering it rather than creating meaning from it. So being more present, being more authentic, being more positional in how I view not only my dilemma and my bout with it, but also being positional in knowing that others are going through their own dramas. Mine just happens to be cancer. It could be a business loss, it could be being fired, it could be a relationship that went sour, it could be anything. We live in a very disruptive world, socially, politically, even technologically with AI. So I think it's important for us to have perspective and to just allow. Words of encouragement I would have for someone who just got recently diagnosed or is feeling their way into this new way of living and being is taking a beat and a breath. Sometimes I think we're all, including myself, very sort of quick to pull the trigger on next steps rather than taking a pause and figuring out for yourself, letting it trickle into other parts of yourself, not just worry and anxiety and your nervous system, but actually go into the heart and to the gut and to other parts of your body, allowing that process to unfold. So I would say the number one practical thing really would be lean into your care team, feel really comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable with them, then maybe they're not the right people to move forward with. Gain as much empirical evidence data that you can regarding the cancer. And thirdly, know that it's a challenge and it's a huge mountain and burden to undertake, but that if you just give it as much energy and much presence and thought as you possibly you can get through it. You just have to be prepared for the journey. I would say when it comes to cancer in general, there's so many question marks with it. If you ask someone about lymphoma specifically, they'll tell you that we don't know even how it starts and where it formed. And it could be genetics, it could be environmental, it could just be the luck of the draw. In this case, a bad luck of the draw. But I will say, no matter what it is, I think it's important to realize that life is trying to show you something. And right now it's really sour. But maybe tomorrow or the next day or the next month or the next year, it could be sweet.
My name is Jerry McCormick. I'm 57 years old. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in September of 2025, and I've been living with it ever since. I am surviving every day, and I try to keep a positive attitude. I had prostate cancer removal surgery. It was supposed to be December 4th, but unfortunately, because of a complication, it wound up being January 6th. So I've been recovering since then, and I have my good days and I have my bad days. But as my father used to say, every day that you're above ground is a good day. My mental health has been the biggest challenge because when you hear the C word, everyone, you go numb because you think it can't happen to me. Why is this happening to me? And so for me, I also live with depression. And so this also caused me to have a bit of a spiral. And if you live with depression on top of cancer, it takes you to a dark place. But I've been battling that every single day. And I try to tell myself, don't live in the dark, run towards the light. And so that's what's been helping me. And also, I have a really great support system with my husband, and I have a lot of good friends. And luckily, I have a job where they've been really flexible with my work schedule. And I recognize my luck because not everybody has that opportunity. And also, I decided to take my diagnosis and move it to advocacy because I don't want other people to go through what I've gone through. And so I've been using my voice. And as a former journalist, I've been using my skills to educate as many people because I believe if I know, you should know. One unexpected blessing I've gotten is the number of people who have shown up for me and people who I thought were just casual acquaintances have really stepped up and said, "Hey, what can I do for you?" And they're not just saying that just to make pleasantries or how are you doing? They really mean it. And so when you go through a life or death situation, which I consider this to be, you will be surprised at who is running through the door and who's running away from you because cancer is very scary and not everybody can handle it. And so I've given myself grace, but I've also given those people grace because we are all in a situation that we didn't expect to be in. And so some people, they handle it better, and some people just can't handle it. So, for example, I have people who I thought were really, really close with me, and they have just sort of distanced themselves from me. And there are people who I barely knew who will send me a text and say, "Hey, I was just thinking of you. What do you need today?" Or they'll just call me out the blue and say, "Hey, I live in San Diego," and say, "Hey, I have an extra ticket to the Padres game or a Dodgers game, and I was thinking of you, and maybe you'd like to get out." I'm also a big comic book nerd. I have 5,000 comic books, and I've been collecting since I was 8, and I'm now 57. One day in the mail, I got like 20 comic books. And I'm like, "Who is this from?" And there was a note from a former colleague and said, "I want you to read these and just for a couple of hours escape." And I just thought that was the sweetest, nicest thing. It's scary, but it's also surprising at the same time. But the main thing you need to do is give people grace and give yourself grace because you are going through uncharted territory here. And there's no handbook on how to deal with cancer. There just isn't. I mean, there are books, but there's no handbook personalized to you and personalized to your life. So you just have to figure it out the best way you can. And you will have good days and you will have bad days. And on the days that are bad, just remember a good day is coming. Survivorship means to me, everyone, that you are doing the best you can because you are navigating something that is new to you. Obviously, we all want to live because, we want to do things in life. And for me, survivorship means no more limits. I have limited myself on a lot of different things. For example, I've always wanted to go to Europe and I didn't have the money, or, oh, I don't want to go over there. I haven't seen all of America yet. I mean, things like that. And so next year in 2027, I booked me and my husband a cruise to Europe because you only have one life. And you've heard that like a million times. But when you are living in this situation, it becomes quite apparent you only have one life. Time is not given to anybody. Tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And so for me, at 57 years old, I've also had other health challenges. I've had 4 knee replacement surgeries. I had a gastric bypass, and now this. And I just realized that time is passing me by. And so instead of existing, I want to live. Every day I do a little something for me, whether it's like meditation, whether it's like writing a letter or email to someone I haven't thought about in a while. I've also been writing Substacks, navigating my journey because as a former journalist, writing is sort of in my DNA, and the blog scares people. Some people are like, "I don't want to read this." And some people are hanging on every word. And so for me, let's just say 5 years from now, I'm not here. I hope my legacy will be he did everything he could. He talked about his journey and he helped educate other people. Because I found out about my prostate cancer sheerly by accident. I went to the doctor for something else, and luckily she was on top of my health. And she said, "Well, while you're here, we should probably do a digital exam." And then after the digital exam, she says, "It's feeling kind of swollen. Let's do a blood test." And that's when everything came out and the biopsy and all of this. And I thank God that she had the wherewithal to say, let's go do this test because who knows when or if symptoms would have appeared. And 5 years from now, I could be stage whatever and not knowing what is going on. That's what survivorship means to me. I think the one word that I would use to survive cancer is strength. And the reason I would use that word is because I have been tapping into strength I didn't even know I had. And I would also use that to apply to my friends and family because one thing you have to realize, everyone, is you're not going through this by yourself. There are people in your life who love you, and they too are going through it. And together, all of you have to be strong. And so there are some days you're going to feel weak. Let's just be for real here. But at the same time, there are more days, I think, at least for me, that I've been stronger than I thought. Don't get me wrong, there are days I just want to curl up in a ball and cry. But as my mother used to say when she was alive, worrying never solved anything. Action solves everything. And so for me, I allow myself to have those days. I'm not gonna lie. I allow today's a not so great day. I allow myself to feel it. I'm in therapy, which it takes a lot of strength to go through therapy and face the things that you're going through. And for me, again, I'm relying on strength that I didn't know that I had. Also, there are some days that I feel physically weak because of the cancer in my body. And so my body is fighting the remnants of this. And so those are the days where I have to tell myself, okay, you need to take care of you today. The world will take care of itself. There are days when I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good, and I try to do as much as I can because, again, tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And so, if tomorrow is my last day, then I want to be able to look back and go, okay, I did everything I could. I was strong as I could. This was a battle that I fought to the bitter end and beyond. And that's one thing I hope that people will take from this is you are stronger than you think. This does not have to be the end all be all. This is something that happened to you and it's unfortunate, but you can survive this. You got this. The thing of it is, this is scary. Acknowledge that. Okay. Even when you're released from treatment, you don't know what's coming next, but you have the power and the strength to survive whatever comes your way. Now, not all of us are dealt the same deck of cards. Some people are living their best life, and some people have tragedy come to them. But whatever cards that you're dealt, play them the best way you can. And also find a good support system. It doesn't have to be family, it could be your chosen family, it could be support groups, which have been really helpful to me particularly for Black men, because this is something that unfortunately we don't talk about as Black men. And so I found in my journey since September, once I came out with I have prostate cancer, I was surprised at the number of other Black men that I know who said to me through DMs or phone calls, hey, I went through this. And this is something that was shocking to me because this is something we should be talking about. And so when you get your cancer diagnosis, some people are very private, but people can't help you if they don't know. And for those of you who have been released from treatment, congratulations. But please recognize that the battle still continues because you just went through something that's very traumatic and your life changed whether you realized it or not. And so you then have to recognize the new you and make peace with whomever that is, and recognize that you still have a future. And even for those who are newly diagnosed, you have a future. Now, we don't know how long that is, and that's for all of us, but you have a future and it's worth fighting for. One thing I want to share is if you have a man in your life that is over the age of 45, black, white, green, yellow, purple, please encourage him to go and get checked and stay on top of your health. Because the thing of it is, doctors are busy. They see multiple patients every day. You're one in an assembly line of people, but your life is your responsibility. And this may be something that did not come across your radar or is not on your bingo card. But the thing of it is, if you don't stay and take care of yourself, nobody else will. So a lot of people, particularly men and men in my culture, are like, I don't want a digital exam because it may make me gay or homosexual. It's 10 seconds. And that 10 seconds could save your life. And if you just are just so against that, then take the blood test. It's easy. It's just a few seconds, and then you'll know. And then if by chance you do get a clean diagnosis, stay on top of your doctor because you don't know what's going to happen with your body. I've learned with my cancer diagnosis is that the body is a very powerful machine. And sometimes it works to optimum capacity, and sometimes it goes kerplunk, kerplooey. But regardless, it's yours. And you have to advocate for yourself. And that goes for anybody that's going through any sort of health condition. You have to advocate for yourself. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to say, this doesn't feel right. Can you check? And then on the other side of this, let's just say you do get the diagnosis. It's not the end of the world. It's a bump, not a pothole. And you have to keep going. Yes, it sucks. It really does. Depending on what treatment you choose, you may choose radiation, which has side effects. You may choose prostate removal, which is what I had. It also has side effects. But regardless of whichever method you choose, the one side effect that you will be getting is life.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Ebonie Michelle, and I am a bilateral breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with breast cancer on the left side. I was diagnosed with stage 1A with estrogen positive breast cancer. So that means it was stage 1, but from the 8 lymph nodes that they removed, there was no cancer in my lymph nodes. So they believed that it was localized to that one area. But on the right side, during my second opinion, which is why I always advocate for women getting a second opinion, it was found that I also had a second site of breast cancer, which was HER2 positive. I have had no evidence of disease for about 5 years now. I am going into 6 years of cancer survivorship, even though I've made the choice to remain on my aromatase inhibitor therapy because there's clearly a genetic link in my family. I am the third woman in as many generations of my family to be diagnosed with breast cancer. So I am doing the best that I can to protect myself while I also work on my body, my mind, and my spirit to be able to stay healed, to stay in the realm of no evidence of disease. Even though I am in that 5.5 years of survivorship, I recognize that this is a lifelong journey that I will be on, and I try to respect it as such. One of the challenges that I face in survivorship, and this is something that I'm actually dealing with right now. So it's really interesting that this is a timely discussion that we're having, or a timeless, moment for me to talk about it is I have been really challenged since the ending of my treatment. There's a fear there, which is why I made the choice to stay on the aromatase inhibitors of what happens if estrogen begins to flow through my body again? What happens if my body is not in balance and I put myself in a situation and I feel like by just giving in to the, oh, you've had 5 years, so you're off treatment. I had to do my own research. I had to understand what was going on with my body, what was going on with my fears, and talk to my oncologist about that. And so that was why I chose to stay on the aromatase inhibitors. But it's hard. It's hard because when that team goes away, that has been with you for 5 years, that is helping you to guide your steps and helping you to understand what is next. So that I guess you can say NED, if you will. It's a challenge. What you put in your mouth, every ache and pain that you feel, the fears, the anxiety, the worry, and even the anger that creep in to your psyche during this time has been something that I deal with. And I'm a business owner and I'm a patient advocate. And I know it looks like I have it all together, but inside I have been a chaotic mess. I'm trying to figure out now, what does my life look like beyond active cancer treatment so that I can stay cancer free? That has been the biggest challenge for me thus far. One unexpected blessing that I have been gifted with since my diagnosis with cancer ties into a word that I think is so important, and the one word that I attribute to my cancer journey, and that is clarity. Cancer has given me a clarity that I never would have had before. I realized who my friends were. I realized who my family really is. I realized those individuals who would support me, but I also realized that there are some people who maybe they did want to support me, but they did not know how. And I think that we have to give a little bit of grace sometimes, because just as we are traumatized by hearing those words, you have cancer, many people are traumatized by hearing from the person that they love that they have cancer. And so many of us think of the word death immediately when cancer comes into this. So there are people who are like, I don't want to watch my friend die. I don't want to watch my friend or my family member suffer. So they choose to remove themselves from that situation. I am very empathetic to that. But I also want to recognize that clarity was not just about other people. That clarity was also about myself. I realized that I didn't know what it was like to love myself. I did not know what it was like to show up for myself. I did not know what it was like to really fight for myself. I was a mom, I was a wife. There were so many times when I just felt inadequate as a woman and in those roles. So I would do everything I possibly could to be the best wife, to be the best mother, to be the best employee, but I did not know how to be the best Ebonie. And I'm not saying that this is how everyone should feel. I'm saying how I felt was that woman had to die so that I was able to live. And that is a clarity that cancer gave me that is a gift. And you will never hear me say that I'm glad I got cancer, because this was a bit of a road, but I also recognize that even in the darkest, most hollow places, there is the potential for beauty, there's the potential for knowledge, and there's the potential for growth. And I think that clarity gave me a grace that I was lacking prior to being diagnosed with cancer. Survivorship is a very interesting word for me. And I think it's because I kind of break that up into survivor being the most critical part of that term. When I think of survivorship, you think of either the absence of death, which means that you are alive, or the absence of life, which means that you are dead. But instead of survivorship, I try to focus on thrivership, and that is what comes in between that state of life and death. And that is the joy that you wring out of every aspect of life that you possibly can. That is loving. That is laughing. That is listening to all the naysayers who say you can't, you won't, but you know that you will. That is thrivership. It is saying, and forgive me for saying, the hell with what everybody else says. I have this condition, I have this diagnosis, but I am going to live anyway. There's a young woman who is an AYA cancer survivor, and she's also a yoga teacher. Her name is Tasha, and she has that tattooed on her wrist. And when I heard that mantra, if you will, that she lives by, that focuses on the fact that you have to live anyway, because cancer is a thief. It will steal everything from you, including your life. And so in my situation, especially knowing what happened with my mother, what happened with my grandmother, I realized that I had a choice. I could either fold or I could fight. And in my case, I choose to fight. I don't fold. I never have, I never will. And so that is what thrivership to me is, being able to give my children an example. So if they ever have to be faced with cancer, I want them to look cancer in the face and say, you will not take my life. You will not take my joy. You will not take my agency. You will not take my ability without me fighting with every fiber of my being to prove that you have no place in my life. And to me, that is what thrivership is. It is truly understanding the beauty and just the wonder, even in the difficult times, that life has to offer, and absorbing that with everything that you have so that you can be the best version of you that you could possibly be. I think it goes back to that word clarity. Clarity, but not just that. It is also about seizing the moment, and not just one moment. It is about every moment that proves to you that cancer has no place in your life. It's about those hugs that I get from my children. It is about the love that I make with my husband, in every sense of that word or that term, if you will. It is about looking in the mirror with every scar. And I've had 5 surgeries in 5 years, so I have 10 different scars, and yes, I've named them all. Looking at those scars and realizing that they are a testament to my testimony is something that is very powerful. And I try to remember that every single day, that I have to seize the moment, because my mother did not live long enough to see some of these moments. My mother never cradled my pregnant belly. She never held my children. She never got to see the smile that looks just like hers. But even in her own journey, my mother's cancer metastasized to her brain and to her lungs. So there were so many things that she loved about life that was taken from her, until she literally looked like a shadow of her former self. So I realized that I not only live for me, I live for her in the moments that she was not able to have. So that is part of that clarity, and that is part of my ability to seize these days, these moments, these experiences with everything I have. Because cancer, regardless of what happens, because let's be honest, we're not all going to make it. We're not all going to make it. But for the moments that we are here, we have to live as fully as we possibly can, because that is our responsibility to ourselves. Not to anyone else, but to ourselves.
My name is Christopher Shattuck, and the type of cancer I dealt with was stage 4 prostate cancer. And I've been a survivor now for about 5 years. Challenges of trying not to give up. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I can only speak for myself. Cancer obviously changed everything. And then dealing with chronic side effects changed everything as well, because I have a lot of difficulty with simple tasks because I fatigue easily, or there's chronic pain, have chronic migraines now. What the radiation therapy did to my body gives me constant pain, and the side effects from that. I'll have my days where what's the point? But it's like, if I give up, then I'm just giving up living. And I have too much going on to give up living. I graduate school in a few days, my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And what I didn't mention, within the past year, I was also enrolled at Berklee School of Music online for their music therapy program, and kind of fine-tuned my guitar skills. So I said, okay, I can't be enrolled in 2 universities at once. So Berkeley has to be put on hold for now. Let me finish grad school, and then in a couple of years, I'll come back to that. But yeah, I try to stay busy. When I physically have trouble, I make sure that my mental capacity and emotional is strong. And the being in grad school and doing everything else that I do has definitely helped. I found out the hard way just how high my tolerance for pain is. Being in the Army, dealt with a lot of stuff, physically and emotionally. And I've always accounted for having physical strength and I can endure things. But with the cancer treatments, having to mentally push yourself when your body fails you, when you're a person in recovery and they give you oxycodone for pain relief. And then when you realize that when you don't take it for a few days, you start to have withdrawals. And that's something that I don't want to experience again. So I stopped, I kind of weaned myself off of oxycodone. And this was shortly after one of my first treatment, which my prostate was removed. So I still had to deal with a lot of the sutures and scars and everything. And the oxycodone wore off to deal with that pain. I just dealt with it. And then when the lymphedema, a side effect from prostatectomy, where my lymph nodes were inflamed, so my left leg was twice its size. So I could barely walk. It felt like my leg was dipped in acid. That's the only way I can describe it. So friends and family were like, take this. I'm like, nope, I don't want to take that. Like, you guys don't understand. Being in recovery, I don't want to take that. So I'd rather suffer than take something that I know that would cause me to relapse. I don't know if I would call that a blessing, but I think despite everything else, I wanted to make sure that my recovery was first because I think if I relapsed, I would not have gotten through all of my cancer treatments for 2 years. I guess that's a blessing. I'll call that a blessing. Painful blessing, actually. Survivorship means that I still get to live and enjoy life, despite things have changed. When you're faced with your own mortality, your outcome, your perspective on life definitely changes. So it's like, well, okay, I can't do the things that I used to do. I was still in school. I was working 2 part-time jobs. And I'm going to push through this. I'm going to still try and be normal. But when you have your prostate removed, you're on intense hormone therapy for a year, and you deal with intense radiation therapy for 10 weeks every day, yeah, everything does change. And so I had to learn the hard way that, okay, I can't do the things that I used to do, but I can reshape and remold and adjust on what I do. So I'm not putting any more stressors on my body because I'm trying to push through. And so mentally, it's like, okay, I know today will be a bad day. So let me just do a lot of self-care. So it's still living, which is what survivorship means to me, but it's an adjustment. And that's another painful lesson to learn because I would still go to the gym, push through this. I try to do some things that I used to do and I would collapse because I can't. So again, learning the hard way. I've developed a little gym in my house and having a fitness background. I know what to do, the bare minimum, the basics, and to just, try to maintain. So survivorship is just adjusting on how to live and still have a quality of life. Resiliency, because in the early stages of cancer treatments, there were moments where like, am I going to get through this? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that, which is understandable. But then I just said to myself, well, it's not going to change anything. Because if I stop doing what I'm going to do and what I'm doing, pain's still going to be there. I'm still going through cancer treatments because I still got cancer. So it's just do what you can when you can. And if you got your moments where you need to scream into the abyss, as one of my professors likes to say, I would do that. Once that's done, it's like, all right, big boy pants on and just keep moving. It's all about just knowing when to take the time, scream if you need to, stop what you're doing if you need to, but just keep moving and just stay positive and say, you'll get through this. You just keep pushing and keep pushing. And there are roadblocks. There's always going to be roadblocks, but I wasn't going to let cancer and the side effects chronic side effects, everything that comes with it. I wasn't going to let it stop me from living my best life, and I am living my best life. So the one word, resiliency. Utilize the resources that may have been given to you. Get to a cancer support group. They are out there. If you can't be there physically, they have many that are virtual. I belong to a veterans cancer support group. I've been with them for 6 years now. We meet once a month on the second Tuesday of each month, and it helped me get through. For all veterans, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all the branches. So we obviously have that in common. And cancer doesn't matter whether it's colon cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, cancer. And that got me through a lot. And it still does, and it always will. And once people are around long enough, you really build a bondness, even though we're not there in person. We're there for each other in spirit. And then there are those who have terminal cancer who you don't see anymore. And you ask the group facilitator, and without breaking any kind of ethical codes, she will more likely and say, well, it's been a while. There's like a little code or something. It's been a while since that person has been here. Don't think they're coming back, or it's something to that. So it's just like, well, okay, you know that person's gone. But when they were in the group, they knew that their time was ending, but they were still positive. These people got me to be positive. And so I stayed with the group. And I've done other support groups as well. Talk to people who have gone through or are going through the same thing. That way, you're in a safe space where whatever it is that you're thinking, no one is going to judge, because the people have either been through it or will go through it, have gone through it and came out, I don't want to say better for it, but they got through it. And so now they try to give back and advocate. And that's what I try to do. I joined the Massachusetts Prostate Cancer Coalition and Zero Prostate Cancer Organization. So I try to do what I can do when I have the time. After grad school, I will be more involved in advocating for both of those organizations, and just being with others, it's definitely helped me as well. So if you're listening out there, get into a support group. And of course, your loved ones, if they're trying to help, let them. If you feel that you can trust people with very intimate details that will come up, if you feel that you can trust them, just emotionally vomit, as I like to say to my clients. Just get it out. Don't hold it in. Don't try to be the man. I tried that. It does not work. It makes things so much worse. So once you get things out and off your chest, and being in a group and around people that you can trust, you feel better. And it helps you to deal with it. Thinking positively does help. Do the best that you can. It will be hard. It will be difficult, but also advocate for yourself, because there will be some medical professionals out there who may not have your best interests at heart. It's sad to say, but there are people like that out there. And so learning everything that you can about your diagnosis, side effects, treatments, success rate. I know things have changed since when I was going through cancer treatments, so there are better options. Just make sure that you advocate for yourself. I was lucky to have an awesome team of doctors. They are out there. If you're met with one doctor and if you just don't feel like there's a connection, or their bedside manner isn't up to your standard, not theirs, you have that option to be like, okay, I'm going to get a second opinion someplace else. So don't forget that.
Hello, my name is Heather Von St. James. I was diagnosed with malignant pleural mesothelioma in November of 2005, and I am a 20-year survivor. I thought survivorship would be a lot easier, and that's what I discovered, is I thought survivorship would be, after going through cancer treatment, survivorship should have been a walk in a park because I survived it. I got over the treatments and everything, so my body should be fine, right? So I was very, very surprised to learn that my body wasn't fine after treatment and surgery, and that I needed help to get there. And most of all, my mental health was in a really bad place for a while too. And I think that's the thing that surprised me the most was the mental battle after all my treatments were over. So thankfully, I got some good therapy from a therapist who specialized in post-cancer treatment and trauma-informed therapy. And that really helped me put things into perspective and understand what survivorship really is about. So thank goodness for good therapy and good therapists. The most unexpected blessing would be the people. Mesothelioma is considered a terminal cancer. Most people don't live beyond 18 months. And through my advocacy, I've gotten to know hundreds of patients through these last 20 years. And that is the silver lining to all of it, is the wonderful, wonderful people that I've met, whether I've known them for 10 years or 10 minutes. They're just so unique, and we form a fierce and fast bond. I have made friends that we still keep in touch all over the country, New York, California, Utah, and then the loss hurts a lot, but I know that they're still with me, spiritual kind of way. I don't know what your spiritual thinking is, but I feel their presence with me when I do advocacy and I speak for those who no longer can. And that is probably the biggest blessing that I've discovered. Survivorship means overcoming successful medical treatment, stick-to-itiveness, which is a big word, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's kind of like the ultimate goal to survive cancer. And when you do, it's worthy of celebration. And we celebrate it every year on the anniversary of my surgery. So I'm thrilled to be a cancer survivor. And I also feel that it's my purpose to give back and help others. So as long as I'm here, that's what I'm going to do. One word I would use of me surviving cancer. That's a hard one. I don't know if I can come up with one word. I use a lot of words. Let's see. I would say grace. Grace. To give myself a lot of grace for what my body has been through, what my mind has been through, and how I've overcome all of that. So I think grace would be a good word. It gets better, and get help. There's so many resources for help. There's support groups, there's organizations. Whatever cancer you've been diagnosed with, there is probably an organization or nonprofit around that type of cancer, or there is other organizations that support all types of cancer, and get involved with them and get support, whether it be a mentor, whether it be a therapist, whether it be a doctor, a social worker, or even a clergy member. Whatever you can, get the support that you need to get through the tough times. And it's finding other survivors and people who have been there, or a mentor has been life-changing for many people. I would just like to say, if you are finding yourself in survivorship and it's not what you thought it would be, or you're wondering what's next, it's up to you. There's a whole big wide world out there, and there's so many ways to get involved. And I found out the best way to get out of my head was to help others. And whether it be get involved with nonprofits, with cancer associations, whatever it is, giving back and getting out of your head helps with, I think, the loss of purpose and the loss that we all experience with a cancer diagnosis. So getting involved and giving back really helped establish that sense of purpose in my heart.
Before I close out today's episode, I want to sit with you for just a moment. You have just heard from 7 people at 7 different points in their journey. And even though their cancers are different, their timelines are different, and their lives are completely different, I want you to notice something. They all said the same thing in different ways. They found strength they did not know they had. Vanessa talked about adapting like a caterpillar, becoming a butterfly. Shoni said survivorship is going through it, not around it, even when it feels like a puddle of mud. Savio learned to give himself permission to rest and discover that healing is not linear. Jerry reminded us that a diagnosis is not the end of the world. It is a bump, not a pothole. Ebonie said she had to let the old version of herself go so she could truly live. Christopher put his big boy pants on, even on the days when he wanted to scream into the abyss. And Heather 20 years out is still showing up and speaking for those who no longer can. And now I want to speak directly to you, the valued listeners out there, the one who is still in the haze, the one who has finished treatment and is wondering why no one has told you that this part would be hard too, the one who is quietly trying to figure out who they are now. What if this version of you standing on the other side of this is not who you used to be, but who you were always becoming? Sit with that question for a moment. Survivorship is not a finish line, it is a way of living. And awareness without action is just information. So let today be the moment you reach out to a survivor in your life. Check on them, not just during treatment, not just during the month of June, but on a random Tuesday in December when the world has moved on and they are still figuring out who they are now. Because as Ebonie so powerfully said, we are all not going to make it, but for every moment that we are here, we owe it to ourselves to live as fully as we possibly can. Thank you for listening to this very special episode for National Cancer Survivor Month. Thank you for caring. And to every survivor who trusted me with their story today, I see you. All 15 years of my own journey sees you. If this episode touched your heart, made you think, made you cry, made you feel in any way, please share this very important episode with someone who may benefit from it. Before we end, I would like to give a shout out to the Navigating Cancer Together community and valued listeners. Thank you for joining us. Happy National Cancer Survivor Month. That is it for this Wednesday. And until next time, let's keep navigating cancer together. Take care.